Hi, and welcome to episode 52 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Monday, the 3rd of October 2016, and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown on Ravelry, Instagram, Pinterest, and it's also the name of my Etsy shop, where I sell project bags, zipper pouches, DPN holders, and various things. I'm coming to you from the central west of New South Wales in Australia, where it's a pretty windy day and the roof is rattling a little bit, so I'm sorry about any sort of random noises that may crop up. We've had crazy weather again, and thankfully it looks like we're going to have a warm spell and spring may properly be here finally. I've had a very busy week. I've been catching up with my mum and also tackling gardening and all sorts of things, so I haven't actually got that much knitting time done this week, but I wanted to podcast anyway and try to stick to my Monday routine. We also have a Give Me Colour knit along, so a Colourwork knit along going on in the Ravelry group, so I wanted to share the progress that I have been making on my Colourwork projects and chat a little bit about Colourwork. So not a great deal this week, but let's get on with it. So I have not made any progress with my Taskutaki cardigan, but I was able to show the pattern to my mum, and she's a very clever knitter, and had a bit of a chat with her about the dilemma about the pocket width and the pocket height, and I decided to just start on the second pocket, but I haven't made any progress. I also haven't made any progress on my Rose City Rollers socks, so hopefully I'll get back onto those soon and get all my knitting time back, but it's fun hanging out with mum, so I'm sure you understand. I have been working on my Echoes from Corellia socks. So this is a free pattern by Dina Cool, and it's available on Ravelry, but I haven't made a huge amount of progress because I think I was up to just starting the grey section last week, and I finished the grey and I'm back onto the sort of army green, mossy green colour section. This pattern is based on some of the patterns from the Karelia region, which is sort of part of Finland and part of Russia these days, but used to be Finnish land. And it was interesting to be able to show this to my mum, and she asked me where the pattern was from, and I said it was a Finnish pattern, and she saw that there's a Karelian basis for the pattern, that she said that it reminds her of some of the Karelian traditional costumes. So I'm not as familiar with Finnish traditional costumes, but she could see it clearly in the patterning. While I've been working on this, I've been thinking about colour dominance, and when you're working with Colourwork, it's important to keep the yarns in the same positions, so each time you put the project down and you pick it up, you have a particular colour in the left side and another one on the right. So whether you're working with two hands or you're tensioning them off one hand, having them in the same position means that one of the floats will go lower and one will go higher. The one that goes lower is the one that will pop. So in both of these sections I've made sure that the light grey is the colour that's getting the longer floats. So I have it on the left, and then I have the background colour on the right. It's something that I've read about in a few different articles, but Isolde has a fantastic tutorial about colour dominance with Colourwork that I found really helpful, but I tend to forget in between each Colourwork project about which position I should be having which yarn in, and I always go back to Isolde's article that explains that the one that goes lower is the pop colour, and I'm sure that after I do a few more I'll get used to that, and it'll stick in memory. But I'm one of those people who learns by doing, and I just need to repeat things on a slightly more regular basis than what I've been doing with Colourwork. So yep, so I'm having the lighter colour, the foreground colour on my left, and then the background colour on the right. And when I've also been working, because I'm using double pointed needles, just because they were the ones that I happened to have in the correct sizes. I was planning to do this on magic loop, but I didn't have the right size needles, because then with magic loop you don't have to go around so many corners, because when you go around a corner with Colourwork and you've got a few different yarns going, you need to make sure that your floats continue to be sort of, that they take the long way around, because otherwise you'll get puckering. So I have a little bit of puckering at some of these joins, you might see there, but it should even out once I give it a wash. But the way that I prevent it puckering even more is when I turn a corner, I put my finger and hold the yarn strands in place while I do the first few stitches of the next needle, and then that means that the yarn is going all the way around the corner, and I find that that helps. There was also a question in the Ravelry group about stitch counts, and Colourwork netting doesn't have the stretch, and you don't really want it to stretch too much because it will distort the pattern. So Colourwork socks and mittens tend to have a higher stitch count than what normal socks would. It's also a thicker fabric, so because you've got a slight bit of thickness to it, you need a few extra stitches in the round in order to sort of sit comfortably on a foot. So Colourwork, higher stitch count so that it doesn't stretch and so it fits properly. Colourwork also tends to have large size needles. I think I might have mentioned this last week, so I'm using a 2mm for the cuff and any sections that don't have Colourwork, and 2.5mm for the Colourwork section. And because I've got the two different needles on the go, I think I'm actually going to start the second sock. I'll finish off this section of Colourwork, and then I'll use my 2mm needles to start off the cuff, then switch those onto here to get ready for the next section, and then switch these needles onto the other one, so that I'm essentially doing both socks at the same time, because I find that when I knit two socks, I often end up with the second sock being a little bit of a tighter gauge. It's not so much that they can't be worn or anything, but I'll do these sort of two at a time, but by just swapping the needles out from one to the other. So that's my little socks. I really want to work on them, but I just haven't had the time. So it's a great pattern. I haven't had any problems with the instructions, but I am changing the colours around a little bit, which I mentioned last week, so I recommend checking it out if you want to do some Colourwork socks. I've also been working on my Eyelid top, which is a pattern by Isabel Kramer for Quince & Co. And I think last week I was sort of working, just almost finished up with the stripes, and now I've been working on this section with the tawny owl. So this is knit with Holscan Coast, which is a wool cotton blend, and it's a summer top, but I'm definitely not ready for wearing summer tops yet. It's temperatures are still way too cold, but I've been trying it on and I've been happy with the fit. I was starting to get concerned that it wouldn't be wide enough around the hips, but it's fitting fine, and I think once I get the lace on, which will start in a few more rows, it's going to sort of get a slightly wider fit again, and I think that once I actually block this, it'll get wider again, so hopefully it doesn't turn out too wide, but it'll be perfectly fine for wearing. I can't remember if I mentioned last week that what I'm thinking about doing is, once I'll do the lace in this tawny owl sort of creamy beigey colour, and I'm thinking that for the bind off I might use this blue colour again, and I think that that will just tie into the top part to have the bind off in the blue, and it'll look nice to sort of do that. So I'm going to give that a try, and then I'm going to do the neck bands and the arm bands in the blue as well. So I've got a little bit left over just to make sure that I can get all of that done. But I'm going to have to block it after I do the lace and before I do the band, so I'm hoping that I'll have this finished for next week's episode. But it's kind of taking all my attention, and I also want to be working on my other projects, so we'll sort of see how that goes. But I'm really happy with it and definitely keen to knit another one. So that's my projects, and I haven't had any acquisitions this week as for yarn and those sorts of things, but my mum surprised me with a pair of socks. So she told me that she used to knit socks when I was little. I've never actually seen her knit a sock up until early last year when we went to Finland on a holiday, and she sort of got the bug to knit a sock, and suddenly she's knitting a sock without any pattern. She asked me for the stitch count, and she just suddenly knit a sock. And when she gave me these, she told me that she had never knit a sock with so many colours, that she'd knit 2-colour Colourwork, but she'd never knit so many colours, and she just made it up. So my mum is pretty clever when it comes to knitting, and I was amazed. So I've been sort of staring at these, looking at the different things that she's done, and she knit these out of Cleckheaton Country Naturals, so I think it's a 100% wool. These will be felting somewhat, so at the top it's already just from her working on it. It's gotten a little bit fuzzy, but I'm quite happy to wear these as indoor socks and sleeping socks, and she thought that I needed warm socks considering how cold this winter has been. So she's just randomly done some alternating colours and then little boxes and various things going on, and then 2-colour sections here. I love the way that she's done sort of, which way is it going? That way. That way. I'm really bad with the camera. Yeah, that she's sort of contained the heel with the Colourwork stripes, and then she's done little colours, and she's managed to figure out, sort of just off the top of her head, a good distance apart so that she could get the colours to repeat back from the white, brown, orange, brown, white. And then she's done some interesting things on the toe. She was finishing up the toe the other night and trying to remember how she'd done it, so we were doing a lot of counting of where the decreases were, and she was using double pointed needles and having to take the stitch off the next needle in order to decrease, and she was enjoying it. She knew what effect she was going after, but way more sort of effort than what I've ever done for toes, but I think they look super. So I'm looking forward to wearing these. And she did say, though, when she was weaving in the ends last night, she was saying that she probably shouldn't have used so many colours because there was a lot of ends to weave in, but she's super speedy at that kind of stuff and got it done. She does have a bit of a jog on one sock over here, and then I think she did it on the other side, on the other side, and it's just because she hadn't done it for a long time and she was more focused on the colours and stuff. But I said to her that if somebody's staring that closely at my socks to see a jog, then they're way too close. So it doesn't worry me whatsoever. But I think they're super. So yeah, I think she's given me socks when I was sort of minute, but these are the first socks that my mum's given me that I can actually remember, so they're going to be very, very special, and I'm still going to get some wear out of them considering how cold it is. That's it for all the knitting sort of things. There's not too much chatter really. I've been sort of working on the Etsy shop, gardening, trying to stay dry from all the rain, trying not to get blown away by the winds. A few weeks back I mentioned that the one of the 1-year podiversary prizes hadn't been claimed yet, and so I have decided to redraw that. I think they've had about 5 or 6 weeks to claim their prize, so I think especially with the podiversary giveaways, it's only fair that it goes to somebody who's regularly watching the podcast. So I drew the Ravelry pattern of the winner's choice up to $7, and the new winner is post number 5, which is Lisa911. So Lisa911, if you are watching, then please send me a private message on Ravelry letting me know which pattern you would like, and I'll get that purchased for you. Apart from that, yeah, not a great deal else to contribute to the podcasting world this week, but hopefully things will sort of slow down a little bit for me, and I'll get some more knitting time, and it'll be a little bit more exciting next week, I hope. But I hope that you're well. I hope that you're getting crafting done. I hope that you're not getting blown away by winds or getting soaked or flooded or anything nasty like that. So I hope that winter is on the way for the people in the north, and you're having a lot of fun with warm woolly things. And in the south, I hope that you're planning summer knits like me, even if it's not actually warm yet. Be well, and I'll see you hopefully again next Monday. But if I am late, I will pop a note into the Ravelry group. But yeah, I'll see you soon.